Welcome to Season 3 of the Take the Leap podcast. We want to thank you for being a part of this journey with us.
Whether you're just starting to tune in or you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you can expect to hear from entrepreneurs in all stages of their journey, how they got to where they are, and all the mistakes and victories they've had along the way.
We're excited to share new guests and have some returning folks from our first 2 seasons. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited to have returning guest Fatima on with us today. So Fatima is an organizational strategist and policy and advocacy consultant who founded FJM Consulting. She's a seasoned advocate and policy wonk who has worked in federal advocacy, led state-based campaigns, and is deeply experienced in implementation work with state and federal agencies. In 2022, after over a decade working in nonprofit organizations, Fatima pursued consulting work as a way to center her career on helping organizations and change makers build power in our communities and shift dominant and exclusive systems. Throughout her career, Fatima has collaboratively led organizations through the development and execution of programs and initiatives. With this expertise, FJM Consulting offers strategic guidance and support as organizations navigate change and growth, whether that is implementing a visionary new strategic plan, shifting programs to center community, or getting new projects off the ground. Fatima's work is rooted in sustainability and she wants to ensure visions and movements are set up for the long haul through strategy, planning, and building infrastructure within an organization. At the forefront of her consulting work is the drive to create systems change through fostering of community power. She truly believes that justice and movement work cannot be done without uplifting community voices and is passionate about ensuring folks who are directly impacted are integrated into all aspects of policy and advocacy work. Welcome back to the podcast, Fatima. We're so excited to see you and have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay!
So we have to know, what have you been up to since our last conversation? So it's been about a year, and we just talked about this before we came on. It's been about 8 months since I saw you in the flesh in St. Louis. So how have things been going in your world?
Yeah, things have been going pretty well. I feel like, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording of just like how much can actually change in a year. And like sometimes when you have things to quantify time, you're like, oh, here's all the things, the like little list of things that I've moved through. But it's a strange place to be because I feel like when we last talked, I had just come off of just like an intentional pause and was doing some rebuilding work. And now I feel like have gone through another year of work and just feeling more, it's funny how about the year to year about just how more solid you feel about things or the surety kind of sits in. So it's kind of nice to be at a point right now, a year later, of being like, okay, I think I got a firm grip on myself and the things that I'm doing.
Awesome. That's right. I forgot that you did come off of like just like a pause and a reset last time, which is great.
I think that's like really important too, like at any stage in entrepreneurship to be able to like, and I know that not everybody can do it for a certain amount of time or whatever, but like even just like little moments of pause and being really intentional about taking the time to really discover who you are, who your business, like what your business, like is your business still aligned with your original values and goals? Have you evolved? And does your business need to evolve with you? I think it's just really, really important to do every once in a while.
Yeah, everything's a constant shifting, right? It's like sometimes the needs change in the outside world, or you're like, I'm changed, or oh, I was doing work this way, but I'm like learning a different way of approaching it or doing things. And so it's really nice, I think, to have those intentional moments to reset and like sit with it and be like, okay, what's coming next? Where am I going? Has the marker moved? How do I move towards that marker better, sort of thing? So I feel really good about, trying to make sure I get those spaces to like reground myself in like what I'm doing and what I'm working for. It's hard because I feel like that's what the work is that I do with clients a lot. And then it's like, okay, I got to do that with myself too and make sure I take time for that.
Yeah, that's really smart. Well, and just to kind of spiral off of that, you kind of did that work, and then leading into the beginning of the year, this year has changed a lot in many different ways, but specifically just the political climate, especially around DEI and federal funding changes and nonprofits. So, like, how has that, coming off of your time and really discovering your business, and then having that big change happen after, like, how has that impacted you, and how has that impacted your business, and like what kinds of things have you done this year because of that?
Yeah, this is also something I think the three of us were just talking about informally too, but it's hard out there right now. It's just, mentally and emotionally and just like the day-to-day figuring out how to navigate the new things that are coming up or the new challenges that are happening. And I know a lot of my colleagues who are doing like direct DEI or organizational culture work have been really deeply affected or forced to figure out how to pivot or reframe their work in real time. And it feels like we're all just in this process of being like, how do we navigate this together when there's no clear-cut best practices? There's no sense of how to navigate this new moment that we're in. And I feel like for myself, like while I don't do direct DEIJ work with organizations, and my work is still like steeped in equity and achieving justice. And I really think the answer for anyone who's doing mission-driven movement work is it's affecting all of us. There's this constant environment of fear and uncertainty that's in the backdrop of all of our minds all the time. I think it's important to like, I remind myself a lot, like work is not separate from the political environment that we find ourselves in. And even in the moments where it doesn't feel like it's directly affecting the bottom line, but it's always there, whispering to you on the day-to-day, seeping into the cracks of your workday. Like you can't escape it. And, on the work side of things, it's also been challenging to navigate. Like my primary clients, like a lot of entrepreneurs, are nonprofits. And I find that even if they haven't been directly impacted by the cuts, and a lot have, they're being more fiscally conservative and more hesitant to invest in outside services, which, given the policy and funding threats to their operation, like just makes a lot of sense. And so it feels like there's this tight hold on budgets, and most organizations are like asking themselves questions on like what's central to their core work, or what are the most critical needs that they need to stay afloat as they navigate what might be coming next. And with consulting, there's always this constant unknown of what your next gig is or when it might be coming. Like that's the perpetual cycle. But with this new constant, I'm finding that locking down new work is taking more time than usual, or it's harder to get in front of someone to pitch consulting services. But I'm hearing a lot of things from other entrepreneurs, and I think, like everyone else, I feel that nervousness and uncertainty, like, how do I move forward? Will I be forced to pivot at some point? But, it's just one day at a time, right? And I'm trying to remember, too, that movement and justice work always faces these kinds of challenges. It's difficult work. This is long-term work. This is never-ending work. And achieving justice and equity for our communities is just one very long and exhausting marathon. But still we have to keep with it. And the best thing I can do as challenges come is to figure out how to shift and adapt and, maintain my energy to keep pressing onward. So it's kind of how I'm approaching things these days, one day at a time.
That's
That's
all
great.
you can do, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah. Well, and it's great too. It sounds like you've been talking to a lot of other folks. And I think that's been one of the nice things about like being on the podcast and being able to talk to other folks who have like nonprofits as clients. We are all facing this right now. Like it's not just one person in isolation. And so one of the things that I've been working on recently is helping figure out like what are the collective needs and how can we like bridge to resource like multiple organizations at the same time, or kind of are there some organizations that like have more funding, and is there opportunities to like share programs, are there opportunities to like shift resources, or even like merge, or I hate the word acquisition because I feel like it's such a like a weird thing to think about with nonprofits, because there's not really like buying out another organization. But I know that there's been a lot of conversations, at least in like the Oregon area, about like what is next for nonprofits. Like how do we maybe merge resources, close some. I know that when I've been hearing like wealthy white folks be like, I want to start a nonprofit. And I'm like, look, if somebody else is doing it, and please support their work. Stop trying to start a new one, because, there's a lot of like shady backdoor dealing too. So I'm just like, okay, you're going to start a nonprofit. All the rich, like the rich folks who are now going to donate to you instead of donating, to these folks who have been doing this work in the community for so long. And, who are you having at the table to have the conversations about what the need is, and different things like that. So that's like a narrative that I want to hear stop. It's like, when you do have extra wealth, or you do have extra means, like starting a new thing doesn't necessarily need to be what you do. There's a lot of different organizations that have been doing things for a very long time and could leverage those resources, instead of a nonprofit going through the startup phase to try to do something as well.
And if you want to do the work of fundraising and getting involved in like boots on the ground, not just give money, then get involved in those organizations too. Mm-hmm. Like give them money and get on their board and get on their committees, like there's a lot of different things you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I say this as a non-rich person. Yes, to rich people.
But you can donate now. No, I agree with that. I think in these moments too, right? And one of the beautiful things that I do feel like happen is people come together, and I've been, like you said, the nice thing about talking to people is around hearing from other people and seeing how they're navigating it. And a lot of people's minds is exactly what you both have been talking about. Like, how do we add capacity to each other? Mm-hmm. How do we lift each other up? How do we know that we're all navigating this moment together? And I think like a lot of what you're saying is, I really want us to position ourselves as, how do we add to, right? And how do we look at what the needs are, and how do we lift each other up, and like try to keep our eyes on like the big picture of like what needs to be done. Because it's challenging right now, but I think there's a lot of brilliant minds in this space, and I think everyone's kind of like thinking through the same things. And so sometimes I have to be the eternal optimist and be like, okay, there's a lot of faith in that, and a lot of faith in like the wisdom that exists with everyone in this like sphere of work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So taking a total pivot, because I think I know that part of like the intentional pause, if I'm remembering correctly, was just about trying to mitigate burnout, trying to make sure that you're, honoring kind of the reason that you got into business for yourself, instead of working in kind of toxic workplace cultures within nonprofits. So are there any like tips, tools, specific systems that you've set up as a consultant to help manage your workload, avoid burnout, and avoid kind of like overcommitment and doing too much?
That's a great question. And thanks for bringing up, the intentionality of like my pause, because I feel like I'm trying to remember that. And I think this is something I try to center a lot, because I think in our last conversation, we talked a lot about why burnout was one of the top reasons I moved into consulting work. And I found that like managing, there's like processes and practices, and I'll get into that in a second, but I feel that managing overwork and preventing burnout like is a constant internal practice. It's something that requires having both systems in place in a way to also tap into that perfectionist part of you that has a hard time letting go. And so like it's that moment like I had to right size myself. It's like even when you leave a stressful work environment, like I quickly realized that there's all these pre-established narratives in my own head about what work should look like and the pressure to operate within that like perfect image. And it's this constant battle between this inner voice that says more work is good, achieve security, hoard all the work, right? And then there's this other voice that wants you to take care of yourself and that's yearning to be realistic about what's possible and what you can actually handle. And so I think the first step in like the process is really being honest with myself about how many clients I should be taking on at once. You know, I've just hit my 3-year point of entrepreneurship, and it's taken this long to be really realistic about how many organizations I can work with at one time. And while it might look different for everyone, like I think I've landed on my personal answer is 3. For me, this usually looks like 2 or more in-depth or long-term clients, and then a small like side project or training on the side. I really try really hard to tailor all of my work for each organization because needs are never like really cookie cutter. And this allows me to give clients the focused attention that they need and the mental space I need to do a good job. Otherwise, I find like when I cave into that inner like work hoarder voice, I spend more time navigating the stress of getting work done than actually working through it. And then I think your question too was about a lot of like systems. I set up a lot of systems for myself, and I think it's just like the ways of organizing myself. I schedule out what days I work for, what clients. I'm clear at the get-go about email response time and communications and expectations. I set up a lot of systems for myself. You know, I schedule out what clients I'm working with on what days. I try to be pretty clear with all clients about email response time and communication expectations. I block out time on my calendar to do focused work. And, you know, honestly, a lot of it's like I take a long break to take a long lunch and make myself something nice every day because it's the little things, you know. And one thing that keeps me the most grounded is I try really hard on Fridays to keep a meeting free and kind of client free day and just focus on business development work earlier. I found, you know, giving myself a little break from direct client work really helps me have a reset and gives me time to slow down and understand that fostering my business is this as important as pumping out deliverables. And you know, I was reading something the other day about what a better measure of work success is these days, right? And that goes beyond just kind of these old notions of like having a good salary and advancing up the work ladder. And it's all of those things, but it's also about liking what you do, having free time, being able to care for your mental health and physical body. So I feel like whenever, you know, that little voice pops up that's like, you should be doing more, I try to take a breath and feel gratitude towards that part of myself that's focused on betterment and security. And then also remind myself that all of these other things are important too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that last part of like when you hear that voice in your head, because I actually think that like a majority of my problem that I have is that I'm putting the urgency on me more than any client is. Like I've kind of gotten to the point where I've been able to identify clients with red flags pretty quickly. I've been able to identify the ones that I work really well with. And so every client I've worked with so far this year has been really great. And they haven't been pressuring me or pressing my boundaries really that much. The urgency and the sense of needing to do more all comes from my own voice. And I see an email pop up and like my heart rate starts going. I'm like, oh no, I have to respond to this right now. And I don't, you know, they know, like, just like you said, I communicated what my communication standards will be. I'll respond to them when I can, you know, like they don't need this deliverable for me yet. Like, it's on the calendar for next week. But I think it's just so ingrained in me, in my head, that I have to respond right away. I have to give them something right away. I have to always be looking like I'm working or ready for them, you know, when that's really not the case at all. And so, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I'm like, yeah, this is something that keeps coming up.
Yeah, I was chatting with somebody the other day, like, you know, they're taking like a lot of time off, like intentional time off from their business during the summer. They're in Oregon, and I was just like, yeah, enjoy your Oregon summer. Like, it is going to be gone. Like, it is going to be gone. It is going to get gross. And, you know, and she was just like, oh, I just can't, you know, like, stop the voice in my head that says, you should be working right now. Why are you not, you know, working right now? And I'm like, yeah, you got to figure out a way to like calm that girl down, because she does not control your life. And, you know, even I have been trying to do that more of like, you know, the workday ends at 5. If I didn't get to everything on my list, those can be the first things I work on like the next day. And, you know, enjoying reading more, playing video games, going out and doing things, and really like stop just focusing on the work, because that to-do list is going to be there tomorrow. I feel like we're always like adding more to it. And then also trying to figure out like what is the, you know, most urgent or important, or what can you just like get rid of? What's a vanity thing that you're just like, I just don't really need to do, you know, be doing that right now. So, and I'm glad that you're finding a lot of success with the time blocking, because that is something that I've been doing lately that has been much more helpful, or at least like telling myself, okay, in between meetings today, like, this is like the number one thing I want to get accomplished. And then if I can get these other things, sure, whatever, you know, but at least like knowing and planning for the stuff that's going to happen. And then anything bonus is bonus, and anything that doesn't just moves to another day.
Yeah, and it really goes back to what Tori was saying about like so much of that pressure comes from yourself too. And like, and you're like, oh, I want to block this time. And then you're like, oh, I feel bad about blocking this time, or like someone's going to need that time, or I should be doing something else. And one of the, like, it's always these small things. I had this moment the other day where I was like updating my Calendly settings, and I have like this thing in where like people can't book me like a half hour after every meeting. And then I feel like I turned it off and I turned it back on. I turned it back on. And I was like, why am I feeling like I am losing my mind over the course of like not being available in half-hour increments? Like, right. It's good to have those spaces, and it's, you know, it's so much, you don't realize when you kind of take yourself out of full-time employment, like how much you've been just indoctrinated into this grind culture, and how much like some of it is, you know, toxic work environments, or kind of this pressure to do more and achieve more within a 40-hour work week. But then you leave and you're like, oh, I still have a lot of that stuff inside of me. And how do I not feel bad about going to hang out with some mountains over the summer, because that's going to nourish me, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a really great job. And that's what I need to keep going on, sort of thing.
Absolutely. And I will say too, like, since becoming a parent, like, I became a parent like 2 years into being an entrepreneur, and then my experience before and now my experience after has changed a lot. And it's like, there's been so much mental work I've had to do, because even now he's almost 3 years old, and I'm still having to convince myself, you can't work as much as you used to before. Like, you just like, at least for my situation, I physically cannot work as much as I used to before I had a kid, because of our childcare situation and just like a whole bunch of other factors. Like, that's just how it is. But I'm still trying to operate the same way I did. And I'm getting better at it, but like, it's been years and I'm still trying to convince myself that I can operate and function the way I was before. And yeah, so anyway, that's just my little my brain just, I don't know, it controls me more than I realize, I think.
Yeah, and and I think that's the practice, right? Like, and I think returning, like I said, was saying, like returning to gratitude of like, how amazing is it now that you have this opportunity to focus on your child, to like
Yeah.
work less and be able to like give them the time in this like really critical development early stage to like be there, to be focused. If he's sick and you need to go to the doctor, like you can take that time off, sort of thing,
Yeah.
without stressing about your own security. And I
Mhm.
think we play into these narratives a lot about like work is the only thing. But
Yeah.
like, and I just feel like grateful. I know I keep saying that word, but like I'm trying to steep myself and like change that like mindset around like, okay, well, how lovely is it to have this ability now to be
Yeah.
able to see the other things that are important too.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Thinking back to my parents, like they weren't given this opportunity because this didn't really exist. I mean, there were entrepreneurs, there were people who started their own businesses, but in the way that we operate now, where we work from home and stuff like that, this didn't exist for them really. So yeah, it's incredible to have that. It's just like really good, even if you're not a parent, just in general, like how cool is it that you have the opportunity now to take care of yourself in a way
Mhm.
you didn't before.
I know. I went to the chiropractor this morning and he asked me, he was like, "What do you do for work again?" And I was like, "Oh, I explained it. Oh, I get to work from home." And he's like, "Oh man, that just sounds so nice." And I was like, "And thank you for doing the work that you do at your place of business so that I can come over here and get
Because
service."
I've been working from home,
Yeah.
I can utilize your
yeah.
services and get my
Mhm.
spine all in
I
alignment.
love it. But yeah.
Uh, yes. Bless chiropractors. I do need to go really random tangent. I do need to go schedule my appointment with them.
Yeah.
It's reminding me that I need to too, and I'm sure anyone who's listening is like, "Oh yes, I've had that crick in my neck. I should go figure
I
it
should probably
out."
go test it out. Well, kind of related, but slowly starting to get off onto another topic here. We talked about burnout. We talked about kind of like ways to prevent that and things. Now that you kind of have your systems in place, how do you vet clients effectively before entering into contracts with them? How do you see like red flags and managing their relationships? I know you talked a little bit about like client communications and stuff like that. So, yeah, like how do you set clear expectations from the start?
Yeah, I really like this question as well. And can I say that it's vibes based? Like the
I
gut
love that.
instinct.
Yeah.
That instinct is strong in this one. But like
Yeah.
in all seriousness, like vibes are a big part of it. And I also, set up some checks and balances in my process that helps with this. And like, at this point, and I'm sure for all of us, right? Like one of the nice things is that about consulting and entrepreneurship is you can be picky about the work and what you're taking on. And I really want to make sure that anything I'm investing time in like really aligns with my values and the mission
Yeah.
of my business. And so from the introductory consultation, I really set up from the beginning like that it's the opportunity to vet for both of us if we're a good fit for each other. Like my approach very much values co-creation, and I try to be upfront that I'm not in this work to like simply execute tasks or check off a box in a long list of priorities. Like I need buy-in, I need shared interest, I need the understanding of the why the work that we're going to be pursuing together is important and why it's really vital to get clear on vision or ensure alignment throughout the team. And like knowing me, for me like intentionality is really everything. And like part of my vetting standard practice is I send along some pre-intake questions that are designed to get a sense about the work, its progress, and then ask the potential client to self-identify any perceived challenges themselves. And it's amazing what you can glean from like just a handful of paragraphs. And it really does allow me the ability to have a direct conversation and set up the ability for the client to be really upfront about anything that might interfere with moving through the work. And then it goes back to vibes, right? So from there, usually I can read between the lines of what I'm being told. And I'm try really hard to trust my gut on where an organization is within their own internal process or what the pulse of a team might be. And like when we talk about red flags, right? Like for me, they're often related to situations around where the client is unclear about why they're moving forward a piece of work or why it's a priority. Or like when you have a conversation, you realize that it really boils down to they received grant funding and the rationale for pursuing work like stops and ends there. Or I'll be in a situation where a client will be like telling me that the work is further along than it is, but then have, a hard time answering very basic questions about the vision, or that, the consult, and because of all this, the consulting services will be very straightforward and easy. And like the spoiler is that never ends up being the case. And like I've learned over time that in those conversations, I can get a really clear pulse of what's going on with an organization within the span of that 1 hour meeting. And I just need to get better at learning to trust myself more. Like every time I try to convince myself um, that it'll be fine or it's different this time, I quickly find out that like my initial analysis of things were correct. And the other thing too, I think around like setting up the way I approach things with clients is I really value being direct and transparent about everything. I'm a direct person. That's how I operate. And if I can set up both expectations and then like work to build trust with a client, I find that clients really start opening up themselves about what feels challenging or difficult to navigate or what barriers can be. And then we can get to the point where we talk about how we can work through it together. And as you said in your really like beautiful intro of me, like my work really focuses on like change and growth or launching new things. And with that type of work, there's always challenges to it, right? I'd be suspicious if there weren't any. But for me, it's not that like the absence of difficulty is best, right? It's more about how can we move to a point of navigating those challenges together and like getting to a point where we can be honest and like figure out what the needs are and move through it together.
Nice.
I love that. I love it. There's something to be said for making sure you do the discovery call. And if nothing else. So if you are a service provider of any kind and you are looking for new clients and you're just starting out, please, for the love of God, do a discovery call and quote, check the vibes.
Yeah. Well, it's also a great place to like set expectations too, because I think like for me in the discovery calls, or I call them growth strategy calls, it's just a really good space to like talk about how you operate and talk about like what you tolerate and what you don't, and be like, no, you are not going to be like text messaging me at all hours of the day to get what you want or you need. And that vibe check is really, really important. And I think
It is.
as you start to hear like common things and common threads, and you're like, I heard that from somebody else and I didn't like working with them after 6 months, like this is a no. And I think also if you are, coming from a place of a little bit more privilege where you can make those like, determinations, I think sometimes too, especially when we're first starting out, we're like, oh my gosh, I just want the money in the business. And I feel like 9 times out of 10, you're going to regret it in the long run. So just like be be confident that something else that is the right fit will go along. Because if you don't make space, don't have the space to like have that additional client come in or something like that, or you're not working towards like more business development, then it can be hard to, you're having this like one really frustrating client, but you are not getting out of it, and you're not going to assign somebody new if you don't drop them at some point. So
Absolutely. And to quote our previous guest, Spencer, I
it
think
was
said this,
Spencer.
not all money is
It's
good
good.
money.
Yep.
Which I love that. I will never forget that.
I love that too, right? Because I think in the beginning too, like every time I would get like a request for like a discovery call or introductory conversation, I'd be like, yes, work, how exciting. And then at some point you're like, oh, I don't want this work, or I can like sniff
Yeah.
out that it's going to be hard. And I think oftentimes when we ignore that instinct and we do that work, and then you just start to slow down, it takes up more of your time, it takes up more of your mental energy. And I know, right, like, at the end of the day, we're all trying to make ends meet and have enough to sustain our livelihood. But like, I love that not all money is good money, because I think going back to our conversation before of like, what are the other things? And it's like, pay attention to yourself, pay attention to those instincts, and like you learn from past clients, like you were saying, Ashlyn, and you're like, I know how this is gonna go. I have experience here. And like, it's great to listen to yourself in those moments and being like, oh, I'm not going to do this a second time, or I'm going to just be straight and upfront with you and say, I've worked with people who are navigating this. This is how it's going to go. Can we be direct about how we want to move through this together now? Because, there's things that we've learned, and, the work in the end is going to be better for the both parties when you're like
Right.
upfront with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually have a question for the group here. So while you're going through your discovery calls and like checking out vibes, because for me it's been like a several year process of like really figuring out who's a good fit and who's not. But I will say, in the instances where I'm like, okay, this is not going to be a good fit, it's been in an instance where they were a client, and then like the contract ended, they wanted to renew, and I said I didn't have space. Like, I was just like automatically like, this isn't a good fit. And I told them, you know what, I just don't have the space anymore. It was great working with you. Thank you so much. And we ended on great terms. But like in those moments, it's been somebody that like I'd worked with, and I haven't yet had the experience where I've had a discovery call where I instantly knew it wasn't a good fit, and I didn't send them a proposal and I didn't move forward. Because in the past, if I had that inkling, I just kind of went for it anyway. And now I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that again. But I still haven't like had that actual moment. So have either of you had that? And like, how did you tell them we're not a good fit, I guess, is what my very long-winded question. Because I'm curious.
I have a response for this, but Fatima, do you have one?
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking, like, the jokey part of myself was like, I have to leave you. I have to go now. And just fade into the darkness like Batman.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I had that experience early too, where I didn't have a discovery call. And I think, at that moment, I would kind of had to have a conversation with myself of like, oh, this could get continued forever, right? And like the need and filling it. And that was one of the things, the early lessons that I learned about like, I'm not really interested in doing work that's like a perpetual work of an organization that an employee could be doing. I'm also not in the business to take work away from something that could be a full-time staff member.
Yeah.
And just kind of realizing that you could easily be in that process and have good, consistent money if you just like keep sucking it up and keep moving. And it's really hard to say no to work. And so I had that moment too, where I had to be like, okay, no, here are my recommendations for what you need. This is kind of like where I stop in like the things that I provide, and having to like move away from that. And then I think after that process, I learned, I was like, okay, I'm getting a little clearer on my services now. How can I like adjust that and like
Smart.
frame that in the beginning for people? Because I think in those moments where you're just like, you're trying to figure out how to navigate that or be like, this is not something I want to pursue. It's really difficult, right? It's like any other interpersonal relationship. We're not here to bash people or say that they're bad or the work is bad. It's more about the fit and like, and I think we owe it to our clients to be like, I'm going to provide the best possible services to you. And if I know already that I can't do that, then I need to make the call to back out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super curious, Ashlyn, what your response was too.
I have two different approaches. One, if it's like, I know I can handle it and it would be annoying, I will give them a proposal, but I will make it really expensive. Like I call it adding asshole tax, and I will just be like, if they'll take it at this increased rate, I will do it, and I will probably farm out pieces of it, or I just say, hey, this doesn't fit with our current capacity. Would you like, me to refer you to other providers that I think would be a good fit? And then, send it off. If they, 9 times out of 10, they usually don't say yes. They'll be like, whatever, I'm going to go find my own people. But sometimes they do. And then I send like very clear, like, hey, this is, this is what I had an experience with this. Here's why I'm not taking it. Are you interested? And a lot of times I feel like the ones that I feel like are usually not a good fit for me are with men for some reason. Like some male, folks, I just get like a weird ick vibe from, or be like, I'm just like, oh yeah, we can't like talk on the same, level. Or like what I've been experiencing lately is I think everybody thinks I'm way younger than I am. And so sometimes I try to like drop years I graduated, or like, like be like, I'm almost at 20 years of like working in industry kind of thing. But, just like figuring out ways to do that. But if you don't like respect me or my craft or how long I've been doing this, like I have no interest in like convincing you that I'm going to do the right thing for you,
Right.
as well. But yeah.
And that's, so important too, I think, right? When we're talking about taking care of ourselves and like also, leaving toxic workplaces. And it's like, we're all running our own businesses here. We're all very competent. And it's hard when you get challenged around that. And I've had that too, where I look young for my age and then feel like then I have to slip in when things have happened, or like I graduated from grad school a whole decade ago, more than that now.
Right.
Um, and just having to slip in like, okay, age and experience, and then realizing at some point, why am I doing that? Like if you're here, if you're trusting me enough to be in this, like to provide the service to you and like to be in this space with me, I need to start out from a point where you're actually acknowledging like the skill set that I bring. And like, and I feel like that's happened a lot to the age thing around like, okay, when I was in my early 20s, it was like, oh, okay, well, you're new to this work and you're still learning. And then I was in my late 20s, and then folks were like, oh yeah, but I still have like 20 years on you. Or now that I'm in my like late 30s, I feel like then I get conversations often, with older men too, that are like, oh, well, you're still younger than me. So then it's like, when does that bar ever stop about saying like what experience is? And I think over this time, I think I've learned like, it doesn't matter, right? Like we're in this, we're bringing a skill set. How do we own that for ourselves and also not accept that behavior from other people and just be like, nope, I'm not going to move forward with that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anytime there's been a weird conversation like that, I'm like, okay, we're not going to be a good fit. Like,
yeah,
it's not going to work.
So our second to last question. So I'm just curious, like what have been some common challenges that you have faced in co-creation and facilitation with your clients, and how you're overcoming those?
Yeah. That's a good question too. Like, I feel like co-creation for me is at its essence around like creating something new together that's steeped in shared vision. And like often my work requires visioning strategically about something in the and intentionally about short and long term goals and what we're collectively moving towards. And that work is really not easy because it takes, something that can feel really lofty or theoretical, and you're trying to like grab onto it and ground it in some clear action. And so, one of the things I've learned in this process is that every team is different, right? Like, teams are made up of people, and all of our brains work differently. So, some team members are big picture thinkers and can see the end game like very clearly, and some feel more comfortable when they're immersed in the execution of like everyday tasks and like all the details in between. And all of these work personalities can, and they should, live on one team. That's what makes us stronger, that we're not exactly the same. So something simple like creating a clear infrastructure or process or developing a new initiative suddenly like gets more layers to it. So it's often not, one of the challenges is that it's not a one size fits all approach. And sometimes I think we get into these things of like, oh, I did this similarly for this other client, I'm expecting it to go the same. And that's not the case. And you really have to learn how to navigate the needs in real time. And there are days where I'll like set up a activity or a discussion to work through an important piece of work, and it won't land. Like, it'll just be like crickets, or like the conversation suddenly gets stilted. And I won't lie, like there can be this internal panic or frustration in those moments, but I like to take a step back really and remember that there usually means that there's something underneath. Like there's a collective confusion or something else that's stewing, that's inhibiting the ability to move forward. And that it really is my job to figure out what that is and help teams work through it. And really in those moments, I have to go back to the drawing board and try to approach it from a strategy mindset. Like, can I get more clear on what the barrier is or what the sticking point is? And once I do that, how can I amend my approach and support the team in navigating what's coming up? And it really is like this constant learning process with every client or project. I learn something new, and then I log that in my experience bank of like, oh, okay, I know how that goes down. The next time this comes up, I feel a little more equipped to be like, oh, this feels like this, and this feels like what's the stickiness. And now I have experience of how to move through that. And also just like right now, spending a lot of time finding resources that I can have to be like, what are common facilitation things? What are things around visioning and strategy work? And how do I get better at it at the next go around? Because, I think this is a constant challenge. Like, everyone is different, every organization is different, every need is different. And so how do you as the person who's the perceived expert come in and be like, I need to navigate this alongside you?
I really love that answer of like that it does take like when the things don't land, be like, okay, it is back to the drawing board kind of thing. And that you have like a humbleness about that too, of like sometimes things don't happen, but it is like an evolution of learning, like how to deal with things the next time that they come up. And I think that's like a very valid way to approach business, because I feel like I do that a lot with my clients. I'm like, hey, I did this over here. It's not guaranteed that it's going to like react the same way within your business, but if you think that this is something exciting to do or work on or try, like, we can see what yields results. And sometimes it works great, and then other times we're like, we're never going to do that again because that didn't really, doesn't really work that well in your industry, or didn't really land with your audience. But at least we can say we now have the data that we tried it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and figured it out together too, because I feel like Ooh, I had a thought and it's like going over here now. I'm trying to like pull it
Grab
back.
it back.
But yeah, I feel like, oh, it might be gone now. Oh, we'll just move on.
We like random tangents anyway. I feel like that's sometimes what a lot of this podcast is. It's just one random thought after another. It somehow works.
It somehow works. Combining all of our thoughts together. Yep. Let me think where I was going with that. Hold on just a second. Nope. It's getting close to 5:30 my time. So
I was going to say,
yeah.
Also, I don't know if baby brain has hit you, but like my sister-in-law is due in September, and she this is total sidebar, but she totally forgot that she had already told us, because it's been on my calendar, what day she wanted to do her baby shower, and she was trying to get us, because we're going to be at the Oregon coast, and my husband's family is doing like a family reunion day, and then she was like, oh, we'll just do the baby shower the day after, and I was like, we are not coming 3.5 hours from the coast to the baby shower and then coming, like, because we were staying in the coast, we're like, we'll just see you whenever. And then she like moved it back to August 30th, like the next weekend, because I was just like, those are our last 2 days at the beach, and we're not giving 2 days to family. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're going all the way from Vegas, like,
I know, it's funny how much
she forgot.
Just changes, right? Like, you just forget, and I pride myself as like, I have a pretty good short-term memory, and then like I was doing like a tax thing, like my estimated tax like conversation I have with my person all the time, and I literally forgot what we were talking about in the middle of the conversation. I was like, I don't know what are we talking about, and then you're like,
yeah. I compare it to computer CPUs. Like, you've got a lot of stuff going on in there. Yeah. Like, there's only so much capacity at any given time.
And I'd like to tell you that it gets better after pregnancy. My experience has not been that. Your experience might be different, but
it's just gone now. I've shed those brain cells.
Yeah. If you don't need it in the immediate moment, it just, at least for me, it just goes away.
I'll try not to like just change random plans on people though.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
It happens. It happens.
Right. Thanks for your patience, because I was like really vibing with what you're saying.
Totally fine.
We get it.
Well, we have actually come to the end of our time and the end of our questions. Although I like this, what we did in season 2. So I think we're going to definitely keep it for season 3, which is we've been asking people, I'm going to switch it. Instead of doing the playlist thing, I want to know, what good book that are you reading right now?
Ooh, I like
or
that.
Or like, what's a...
Or a podcast you're listening to. Or, yeah.
What's a piece of media...
that
book,
you're consuming,
movie, music, something that you're consuming that you're just like, I love this right now.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Or I like that question a lot of like, okay, because it's really important to center and joy the things that fuel us. Like, we started out this conversation with like heavy things in this environment that we're in, and it's like, what's like the good things that are out there? And for me, I've been recommending this book a lot to people right now, but I like reading a lot of like fantasy books. Like, I feel like work is so serious. Yeah. I love what I find, like, my people like, ooh, you drop me your book recs later, but
we'll be texting later.
But like, I love, like, work is so serious, everything's so serious, and so like having a little bit of escapism. So I've really been enjoying Black Sun, which is, I think the third book just came out, but it's based off of like pre-Columbian mythology, and it's really like, I love good character pace, like things like, I love when I have people that I can invest in and be like, I root for you, and they have 4 different, or at least in the first book, they have 4 different people that they follow that are all kind of approaching this like thing that's going to build up in different ways, and they're going to be pitted against each other, but like you root for all of them. And so I feel like that's really like difficult to do. And then and just the silly part of myself, I've been really like, in music wise, just really liking anything that's like dancey and peppy, like remixes or things, like stuff that I can just like dance to when I cook in my kitchen, sort of thing. So I feel like right now it's just like Spotify is probably like, are you Anna? Right? It's like, no, it's Thursday night and I'm making soup.
Nothing wrong with that.
I love it. I have not heard of that book, so I'm looking forward to adding that to the list. Yeah.
Write that down now.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of book 2 of it's called the Aperion. It's Rebecca Yarros, the dragon books, Iron Flame. So I'm trying to get through that, and then Tori knows I've been just like zooming through a bunch of different books for a reading challenge right now, so it's been really fun.
Same. I took a break because I just read a bunch of fantasy series like back to back. So I'm in my silly summer romance phase, which I shouldn't call it silly. It's not silly, but the books are silly. The ones that I'm choosing are silly, but romance in general is not silly. But like I'm picking my silly summer romances as like my palette cleansers. Right now I'm reading Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is, it's great. And yeah, just it's like fun to have like, I don't know, a palette cleanser. That's all I call it.
It's nice to have something that you can just like read and just like crush in a weekend, sort of thing. That's like really silly. Like I feel like I've been re-entering into like romance novels too, because I feel like I had this preconceived notion of what they were in my head, and then I was like, oh, these are just fun and light. I'm reading a lot where like there's like literary things where like two people fall in love over their love of books, or they're like publishers or something. So you'll have to send me more.
I was gonna say Allie Hazelwood is like the best. She's the best. That's all I can say. But yes, there's a lot of really good ones.
Awesome.
Yeah, I get really crazy about books, so if you mean it, I will message you. And I will be like, okay, you need to read this, and you need to read this, and then I'll like follow up with you. Like, how are you doing? What have you read?
Have you read it? Tell me. No, I love that. I really enjoy the like escapism, so please send them to me. And I feel like now, currently, I'm a little bit on a like ban of like buying new books, because like, what point do you become a library where you have like read books?
I think it's technically like 500 or 1,000 or something like that, and that doesn't seem like very many to me. So I'm like, just bring it on.
You were not near that, Tori. I've seen your bookshelves. So
I know. I've still got ways to go.
Free ticket to get whatever book you want.
Exactly. Well, I have a Kindle now too. My husband got me a Kindle this year, and that became a dangerous tool because now it's like I have access to things instantly if I want it.
Totally.
It's a problem. Okay.
If you haven't started doing this list yet, start an Amazon wish list of like all the things you want, and then you can like sort it by price drops. So
I've done that, yeah.
A lot of things I get at like 99 cents, and I'm like, I would normally have spent $10 on this book, so $1.
They frequently do that. But my new thing is I'm like, okay, I can't buy new books unless it's like, because there's a lot of like books like that are a series that I'm reading that like a new book's coming out this year or something like that. So my new thing is like, you either have to read a book you already have, or it has to be on Kindle Unlimited, and I can look through my list and see like which ones are on there. So like that's been my new thing that I've been trying to follow.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see. It's hard not to. I feel like I could be addicted to something else, right? Something really bad.
It's very true.
But instead, I'm addicted to books, and I think life could be worse.
It's acceptable.
Life could be worse,
and it helps me escape.
Yeah.
So that's all that matters.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm going to land the plane. So thank you again, Fatima, for being on
to
with
land the
us.
plane.
Yeah, with us today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. As always, we will have all of Fatima's links in our show notes, and we look forward to seeing you again on the Take the Leap podcast. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Take the Leap podcast. Check out our show notes to connect with us and our guests. If you have questions about the episode or ideas for future topics, send us a direct message on Instagram or email us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. If you're interested in being a guest, fill out the guest interest form on our website.
If you're a new entrepreneur who is looking for a roadmap to move your business idea forward, check out the Take the Leap course on our website, taketheleap-today.com. Members who join the course also have an opportunity to join us in bi-weekly co-working and group coaching calls to build momentum and work on your business.
And if you'd like a flavor of what we offer, sign up for our free webinar with the 9 essential steps you need to launch your business with clarity and confidence. See you next time.